Alaska, America's last frontier and greatest wilderness. Immense, unspoiled, awe-inspiring. Home to half the world's glaciers, America's highest mountains, and ice sheets that stretch to the North Pole. Inhabited by the world's largest land predators, herds of ancient beasts, and leviathans from the deep. The land is hostile, but its richness and diversity is unparalleled in the Northern Hemisphere. All must be resilient and adaptable if they're to survive a year in the wild of Alaska. Alaska is the largest of America's 50 states. It is 7 times the size of the UK, but home to fewer than 1 million people. There are 3 million lakes, 12,000 wild rivers, and 44,000 miles of coastline. That's more than the rest of the US combined. It is the gateway to the Arctic. 500,000 square miles of wilderness that stretches from Canada in the east to Russia in the west. Winter here is one of the harshest anywhere. Temperatures can plummet to minus 60 degrees Celsius. Snowfall measured in feet, not inches. And in the far north, the sun sets for 2 months, casting a huge swathe of the state into darkness. The only light coming from the Aurora Borealis. Winter lasts 7 months. That's longer than spring, summer, and autumn combined. Creatures must battle to avoid starvation and predators. To survive here is tough, but Alaska has one of the world's toughest. Musk ox roam the Arctic tundra, vast treeless plains where winters are long and brutal. Out here, they're exposed to the worst that nature can throw at them. But these conditions are nothing new for musk ox, as they're relics of the last great ice age. They migrated here from Siberia with giant bears and woolly mammoths over 150,000 years ago. The other giants went extinct. Only musk ox survived. Standing 5 feet at the shoulder and weighing almost half a ton, they need a steady supply of food. But there's a problem. The Arctic blast has frozen the snow solid, trapping the vegetation below, starving these giants of vital nutrition. It's like digging through concrete. Even their toughened hooves are useless. As hunger kicks in, they become irritable. Musk ox are naturally jumpy and defensive. One is startled, and they bolt. When musk ox sense danger, they retreat to the high ground, where they close ranks, horns facing outwards, prepared to fight off aggressors, such as Alaska's 11,000 wolves. It's a defense strategy that's helped them survive 2 million years. But this time, it's a false alarm. A waste of valuable energy when food is in such short supply. Many of the females are in the early stages of pregnancy. They must protect their fat reserves, as it's only going to get colder, and birthing season is still a massive 6 months away. Musk ox are not the only ones struggling to find food. Freezing temperatures are also freezing the ocean, trapping many of the state's 2,500 islands in thick sea ice. One of the most remote is St. Lawrence, which lies just 40 miles off the Russian coast. Much of it is deserted. Only scavengers are active. Arctic foxes are well adapted to live out here. Each winter, their coats turn from brown to white to help with camouflage, and double in length for warmth. Their small, squat bodies and a thick layer of insulating fat conserve heat. Furry feet enable them to walk on ice and snow without sticking. These adaptations help them go longer between meals, which is vital if you live in a place with so little to eat. Every year, harsh storms batter St. Lawrence. Turning it into a frozen wasteland. Arctic foxes are one of Alaska's most resilient creatures. But even they are finding it hard this year. Throughout the winter, they're solitary and travel great distances to find food. But in the right circumstances, they will gather. The remains of a bowhead whale that was killed by hunters in the autumn attracts foxes from all over the island. A feast like this will keep them fed for months. That's assuming they can get their teeth into the frozen flesh. And that it's not discovered by the world's largest land carnivore. Polar bears are most at home on the Arctic sea ice. They use it to travel huge distances between islands and the mainland, and from where to hunt their main prey, seals. But they're also scavengers and can smell food 20 miles away. If one of Alaska's many polar bears were to discover this carcass, they would soon take possession. Feeding quickly, the foxes must remain constantly alert. They'll need all the help they can get if they're to make it through to spring. Winter still has 4 months to run. While freezing temperatures grip the north, storms batter the south. 1,000 miles from St. Lawrence Island, in Alaska's southeast, lies Glacier Bay. This coastline is dominated by an oceanic climate. Winters here are warmer, but no less severe than in the north. Wet, warm air blows in off the sea. Rises, cools, and falls as snow. More than 7 feet every year. Over thousands of years, much of this snow has thickened to form glaciers. Slow-moving rivers of ice, hundreds of feet thick. That carve steep-sided valleys out of solid rock. As they grind their way down to sea level. On the coastline, higher temperatures stop the streams freezing over, throwing a lifeline to one of Alaska's most resilient little birds, the American dipper. Each winter, dippers leave their frozen mountain streams to feed on the coast. Pushing her wings upwards and outwards, she quickly drops below the surface. Dippers feed by diving down to the riverbed, where they pick amongst the debris to disturb insects and fish. She emerges with an insect larva, splitting it open by hitting it on the surface. But it'll take more than scraps like this to keep her alive through the winter. She heads out to hunt in open water. And is rewarded with a fish. Which she kills by beating it against a rock. She spends up to half the day feeding in water just a few degrees above freezing. So to keep well insulated, she preens her 4,000 feathers and the thick layer of down underneath. Then fluffs up and squats down to help keep her feet warm. Before heading back to the sea to do it all over again. The mountains and valleys inland from the Dipper's stream are cloaked in coniferous woodland. Up here, heavy snow continues to fall. Carpeting the forest floor. It makes it difficult for Alaska's smaller animals to forage on the ground. To survive here, you must be prepared for the worst. American red squirrels are active all winter and rely on food they cached in the autumn. Sitting on his favorite perch, a male hungrily rips open a spruce cone to eat the energy-rich seeds inside. He can get through 40 cones a day. If he is to survive the winter, he must have a cache of 10,000 cones. Storing them is one thing. Keeping hold of them is another. An intruder trespasses on his territory. Perhaps less prepared. He's got an eye on the cache. He edges closer. But is spotted. The territory owner warns him by drumming. When that doesn't work, he chases him off. His hoard safe, he quenches his thirst. He has to be on constant alert if he's to make it through to spring. Late February, and 4 months into a brutal Alaskan winter. But even out here, it's possible to thrive if you've adapted to the conditions. In a remote valley on the tundra, 1,000 miles north of the Squirrels, a group of Arctic specialists has plenty to eat, regardless of the freezing conditions. Snowshoe hares rarely travel far from their birthplace. They feed on twigs, bark, and buds of stunted willow trees. They're perfectly designed for life in the Arctic. Their white coats help them blend in. Their huge back feet, which give them their name, let them move around easily on top of the soft snow. Essential, as hares are the favorite prey for one of Alaska's top predators, lynx. They're stealth hunters with incredible hearing, excellent eyesight, and like hares, they have big furry paws that act like snowshoes. Lynx are Alaska's most skillful and secretive hunters. and snowshoe hares are their #1 prey. But hares have eyes high on top of their heads, giving them almost 360 degrees of vision. They also have acute hearing. When one senses danger, they bolt. Four out of 5 lynx hunts end in failure. Hares are not the only Alaskan animal to gain safety in numbers. Back on St. Lawrence Island, 100 miles off the Alaskan coast, winter storms have buried the whale carcass under 6 feet of snow, forcing the Arctic foxes to dig deep. But they can't stay down for long. They take it in turns to keep a lookout for polar bears. This group of 10 foxes may have traveled many miles to join the feast. With the coast clear, it's time for a cleanup. Scrubbing removes dried blood and oil from their fur. Fluffing up traps air and helps them keep warm. Essential grooming that could mean the difference between life and death. The sea ice surrounding St. Lawrence Island is now nearly 6 feet thick. It stretches over 1,000 miles, all the way to the North Pole. This may look like a frozen desert, but there is life. Ringed seals haul out on it to warm up. And polar bears roam across it to hunt. Each winter, polar bears fatten up by feeding on seals ahead of the lean summer months. The sea ice lets them travel further, giving them access to more prey. Without the ice, polar bears simply could not exist. Thankfully for them, this winter is a cold one, and the sea ice will be here for a few months yet. Inland, the long winter means ever-deepening snow. Those animals not able to dig through it are forced to search further and for longer. The musk ox herd has moved to higher ground, where the wind-blown snow lies thinner, making access to food easier. Up here, the wind chill reduces the temperature by a further 10 degrees. Muskox have adapted to survive such a battering. Their massive bulk helps them conserve heat. Their fur is made up of 2 layers. A long, thick, weather-resistant outer one and a deep inner fleece. Called kiviut, it's 8 times warmer than sheep's wool. So little heat escapes that their bodies can remain cloaked in ice right through the winter. Access to food is essential, particularly for pregnant females. The next 3 months will be crucial both for them and their unborn calves, especially as winter tightens its grip. Temperatures drop to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Ice crystals fill the air. The longer winter drags on, the more difficult it is for those roaming the land in search of food. Alaskan moose are the world's largest. At 7 feet tall, they can stretch up to 10 feet high, giving them access to nutritious buds and young shoots. During a long, harsh winter, moose can't eat enough calories to stay alive, so must rely on fat they put on during summer and autumn. If they use up these fat reserves, they start consuming their own muscle and will quickly starve to death. Young moose are particularly vulnerable. They allocate most of their food to growth and come into winter much leaner than the adults. Many don't make it. A scavenging magpie grabs what it can of the frozen flesh. The death of one animal bringing life to another. While it's still freezing in the north, in Alaska's southeast, temperatures are starting to rise. Sediment-laden meltwater pours from the land into the sea. strong winds and high tides stir up the nutrients, turning the Gulf of Alaska into one of the most fertile bodies of water on Earth. It's incredibly rich in life, both above and below the surface. The shallow waters along the edge of the bay make this the perfect nursery for young Pacific herring. Called fingerlings, they're only 5 inches long and feed on microscopic plankton that floats in the water. For protection, they form huge schools of over 1 million fish. And for good reason. They're under attack. From harbor seals and stellar sea lions. In an attempt to avoid the onslaught, they head deep. But are chased down. In the confusion, the herring are split up. Some rushing back to the surface. But even here, there's no respite. As they're ambushed from above by a raucous flock of seabirds. But for the young herring, the worst is yet to come, as they're now under attack from one of the world's largest predators. Humpback whales. Every year, a small number of humpbacks overwinter in these waters. They gorge on the shoals of young herring. Humpbacks hunt by diving deep, then explode to the surface, their huge mouths gaping. They devour thousands of herring at a time. Over the next few months, their numbers will grow. As humpbacks from across the Pacific Ocean return to feed in this quite unique bay. An American bald eagle is attracted by the commotion. Bald eagles normally hunt larger prey, but perhaps hungry after the long, hard winter, this one seizes the moment. Southeast Alaska has around 20,000 bald eagles, roughly 1/5 of the world population. As winter draws to a close, they return to their nest. Reunited with their lifelong partners, they quickly start rebuilding work. This is the most challenging time of the year for them. Lower temperatures and bad weather increase energy demands. Shorter days reduce hunting time. And with such a limited breeding season, it's going to be a battle to raise a family. Alaska in winter is one of the most hostile places on Earth. Food is scarce. Conditions are brutal. Only the fittest and best adapted made it through. With the northern hemisphere swinging back round towards the sun, life can once again flourish in Alaska. Next time, spring. Migrants start to return. Those animals that spent the winter in hibernation emerge hungry, having not eaten for 8 months. But spring in Alaska is short, and predators are many. It's going to be tough for both parents and newborn.